right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this electrifying episode of the Geek Garage podcast, the most inclusive and accessible nerd culture audio program on the interwebs. I'm your host, David, and this is actually our first episode of the new year of 2023. And we're starting it off a little differently. Um, we are, first of all, my wife is she is absent from this episode. She's currently dealing with the kids, so that's why she's one reason she's not here, because we're currently recording this in the daytime. um but Another reason is because one of my very good friends, fellow nerd, fellow Spidey enthusiast, fellow artist, the guy who did the caps for my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tumblr, that went gangbusters on Etsy for a while until it got taken down. Um, he is joining us today, Mr. Gabe Silva. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, happy to be back.
I was so excited to hear that you had some interest in coming on and doing this episode, because I really had no idea where to start. In terms of looking for people that could do it, that would be interested. So I was excited that you jumped at it. It's not like I was trying to leave you out intentionally, but I guess it just didn't click initially that you might be able to contribute to this topic.
Yeah, I mean, with my background in art and whatnot, I just figured it would be like, kind of like a perfect fit. So
Right? Yeah,
that's why, like,
absolutely.
when I saw the post, I was like, cough, cough, like, get me on there.
For sure, yeah. To stop beating around the bush, we are here today to talk about a super duper hot button topic issue that's been going around for the past, I don't know. It seems like it's been the last couple of months. People have really been ramping up the conversation around it.
Yeah.
And That is AI artwork or AI generated artwork. Gabe, how do you usually refer to this topic? AI art, AI generated
Yeah,
art?
just like AI art, AI generated, anything or like image based generation would be good too.
Okay.
It's just anything that's generated, not by a person.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so there has been a lot of, like I said, there's been a lot of discussion about it. And unless you've been living under a rock or you're like super old and don't use the internet very much, um, you probably noticed that there's a lot of conversation going around about AI generated artwork.
For
Um,
sure.
a, a lot of the talk has been negative. About how it's well, we're going to get into all those aspects, but there are in fact pros,
Yeah.
and that's what we wanted to do with this episode, right, Gabe? Was to
Yeah, go a little bit over both pros,
yeah,
cons, and just kind of like talk about the thing in general, just because there's a lot of controversy
for
around it,
sure.
especially lately.
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure. Yeah, like people are wanting to try and get into like conventions, and vendor events as like artists who where their art is like being generated by AI. And so far it looks like all of those artists, or quote unquote artists, have been
mm,
getting the axe, which seems to be appropriate as of right now, if that's the only way they are using the the medium, if you want to call it a medium.
right.
But yeah, we definitely wanted to open this up as a conversation and take a in-depth objective look at AI generated artwork, and just talk about it, get it all out in the open, talk about the pros, talk about the cons, and discuss the negative comments and energy that's been swirling around.
Right.
So yeah, let's get to it. Before we dive too deep into said topic, Gabe, you since you are more of an expert at it than I am, would you mind giving us a simple, like layman's terms, explanation as to what AI art is, and maybe some examples to kind of get the ball rolling?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, in general, like when you think of AI art, you kind of thinking, uh, you're essentially just telling a program or, for example, like a lot of them are like web applications,
Mhm.
um, and you would just like put in a prompt and then it will generate an image for you. So it's kind of like a make art button essentially.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of outputs and like websites that you could go to like generate these things, and then you could also build your own programs. There's a lot of people that like full on code like generators and uh God, I don't know what to to call it. It's they call it a neural network. There we go.
Okay, sure.
And so it's essentially like they create a program and they're trying to teach it like, hey, I want you to be able to take these a bunch of pictures, right? And it could be anything. It'd be people, animals, you know, flora, fauna, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and you put it through like the algorithm. Sorry, I can't speak today. Apparently,
No,
you
you're
put it
doing
through
great.
a. Oh, thank you. You put it through the algorithm, and then it'll take essentially like points from each of them, and then try to generate something that matches what you make or that you type in. Um, and there's other like forms of it as well that you could like upload your own images, and then you could get variations based on the image that you upload, or even like apps that you could take a bunch of selfies and then they put you into like different situations.
Right.
Um,
Yes. So with that last one that you mentioned, I think that is probably the best example of what's what like I'd say 95% of people are familiar with in terms of
right.
AI generated art as of this moment. Cuz like a week or two, 3 ago, people, it's just everyone and their mother on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, started using AI generated artwork type mobile apps to
Like
make
make like their profile pictures and whatnot. I see them all the time
right,
now.
yeah, and they're they get for lack of better words, like photoshopped to look like a painted or illustrated version of like King Henry VIII,
Right.
or something in that style, and it's
Yeah.
very good. Um, like they
It could be super convincing sometimes.
Yeah, like I mean, for something that I I think I downloaded the app, or like one of them that someone recommended, and I almost signed up, but it was one of those like trials, and like you had to like put in your card information, and I was like, I
Yeah.
know I am not going to remember to cancel this, and it was like $30 for the year, and I was like, nah, I'm good. So I don't know, I might still do it just to kind of like be the most objective I can be, and
Hmm.
and like use it so I can continue to make like updated and informed decisions about how I feel about it. But
Right.
yeah, like I said, that's as of right now, I think that's kind of the most popular version of AI generated art that everyone is familiar with. So,
Yeah, especially like with social media, just in general, like most people when they're using apps, they're like, "Hey, this is cool. Let me just share it." And then now everybody knows, but
mhm.
that's like the one side that they get for it. I know the app ones aren't like as in depth as some of like the like web applications and whatnot.
Right.
So you could get into like some really crazy stuff that we'll get into later.
Yeah, the web app stuff seems like it's kind of the way to go because
Mhm.
it's the easiest. They don't have to download any other app to their phone. They're directed to a website. Um,
You
so
don't have to worry about like coding and all that.
mhm,
Because I actually tried maybe like a couple weeks ago. There was one that you had to do everything through terminal on your computer. So like on Windows
sure.
computers, you have the terminal like consoles and
Mhm.
whatnot. And you had to do it through Python, and I'm like, I don't know anything about Python. I'm not gonna be able to do this.
I
So I
mean,
ended up just saying, whatever. I wasn't even gonna bother with
I
it.
I think you could learn Python. I mean, I know your brain well enough, and Python it's probably the best introductory programming language to get into in terms of like back end programming. So yeah, if you or anyone else out there looking to learn how to code and you're wanting to do like more complicated stuff like back end programming, then Python is definitely it's a very stripped down, albeit very powerful back end programming language. So yeah, it's a good one.
Definitely something to look into.
Yeah, I use complicated shit. I use C sharp and .NET.
Gotcha. Like in college, I did like C++ with game
Oh
design
sure.
stuff, and I was lost. I I could not do it. But I mean,
Yeah.
then again, I wasn't really like super invested into it because I
Mm.
was just like, yeah, let me just get through this. But I think now maybe if I gave it a chance, maybe. But who knows?
Right. No, yeah, C based languages are notoriously complicated to learn. Like there's just a lot of stuff to know and to learn up front and
A lot of
continuously. Like
math.
yeah, a little bit. But I mean,
Well, at least in my case, I guess. But
if there was too much math or an excessive amount, then I would not be doing this
mm,
for for my line of work
gotcha,
because
gotcha.
I am not a math person.
Yeah, I'm terrible at math.
Yeah,
Get me a
same
calculator, please.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. All those teachers and parents that were like, "You're not gonna have a calculator wherever you go." Like, well, we sure showed them.
Just look at my phone. Half the time I
Exactly.
pull out my phone is to get the calculator.
Yeah, same. Okay, so it seems like we got a relatively good definition,
I'll
and
bet a little jumbled.
surface level look at what AI generated art is. Um, did we go over some examples? I know we talked about like the Facebook like profile pics and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Is there anything else that has been relatively popular that we haven't talked about yet that might be a good
Um,
example?
so personally, like I've been noticing a lot, especially on Facebook, like you'll have like the superhero groups, so like Marvel and stuff like that, but not like the official ones, obviously.
Sure.
But there would be a lot of them that were like, "Hey, this is what Spider-Man would look like if he was Native American." Literally, I saw that like earlier
Oh
today,
yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
they would like massively like generate a bunch of like characters and whatnot. And they'll just make a post, and it'll be like 15 pictures. And then you'll like, cause half the time you'll notice that they're generated, because there's a lot of things that like they just can't do properly, like hands
Mhm.
anatomy for some reason. It hates it. So you'll see like 50 abs on somebody, like stuff that's just not possible.
Right.
And then like 40 fingers, like how is like it just doesn't look right. So you could
Yeah.
kind of tell. So that's one thing that I've noticed a lot lately. And then other than that, it's mainly been like the profile picture stuff. So unless you're
Gotcha.
like really looking for like the more in-depth AI art stuff,
Mhm.
you'll mostly just see like the general like profile picture. Occasionally, like, hey, this is what blah 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 would look like.
Right. Yeah. I think it was last night I saw a set of pictures. It was probably AI art, but it was Star Wars like Sith lords as Star Wars dark side characters as samurai, and it was
Hmm.
really cool. Like it was like Darth Vader had like a samurai helmet. Like like you could still very much tell that it was Darth Vader, but he was in like like full samurai garb. Like it was awesome.
Yeah, it
And they
sounds
had
super
like a
super sick.
stormtrooper, and they had Kylo Ren and a couple others as well. It was pretty cool. So
Oh yeah.
so yeah, okay. So like we said, there's definitely plenty of pros and advantages to AI generated art, which we will get into here in just a little bit. But as we said at the top, it is certainly undeniable that the current conversation surrounding the topic is overwhelmingly negative, and
Right.
we want to touch on that first. So first of all, Gabe, if you could just give us a relatively quick or just a tip of the iceberg I look as to why um, artists are upset about the growing popularity of AI art,
Yeah.
and some of the arguments that have come out against it, whether they're whether you think they might be a little bit exaggerated or whether they're actually pretty well founded in their legitimacy. So yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely some points that are exaggerated, I think, in my opinion at least. Like the concept of people thinking that AI is going to take over artists' jobs.
Sure.
Granted, it'll definitely like probably take back some of like the smaller jobs that might have been around, which
Hmm.
I'm hoping not because I want obviously all artists to be able to shine and get their work out there and whatnot. Um, but that's like one of the bigger things that most people like if they don't really know much about AI art, they're just like, oh, it's gonna take away the jobs,
Yeah.
which which sucks. But and then there's other stuff like well, one of the biggest ones, and there's actually a lot of people, especially on like ArtStation, DeviantArt, pretty much anywhere that people primarily share their art. A lot of people are boycotting AI art because essentially AI art is just straight up stolen art.
Hmm.
Because AI art never generates anything brand new, nothing's ever pulled directly out of thin air.
Yeah. It's all
The
based
AI
off of like web scraping and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly. So there'll be like the big companies. I think there's one called like Stability. I could be completely off, or there might be another name added onto it.
mhm.
But they gather like a lot of the images, and what they'll do is they'll take all the images and then they train the AIs based off the images. So all it's doing is pulling from all those images. So there'll be like a million pictures, right? And
Mhm.
then whatever prompt you put out, it'll pull from those, and then that's how you get your generated images. So the problem with that comes from is as an artist, you're thinking, hey, now if I post something that I'm really proud of on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, anywhere on the internet, anybody could just be like, all right, I'm just gonna throw that into my generator. So your art is essentially just not safe at the moment.
Right.
And that's the biggest con.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like I mean, it's not funny, but like it is kind of funny. Uh, like that's what artists do already, is like
Yeah.
whether you know it or not, whether you realize it or not. There's the thing, the saying, the art imitates life, or life imitates art, however it goes. Nothing is truly 100% original. You learn about Picasso and Van Gogh and Monet, and you learn about contemporaries like Jackson Pollock and Andy Warhol, and you learn about all these different artists and different mediums, and you stash the ones away that are your favorites, like in the recesses of your mind, and then forget about the rest.
Right.
And when you go to do your art, whether you're an inker, or just a digital illustrator, you do physical painting. It's you're pulling from inspiration that already exists,
Yeah.
work that already exists. The big difference here is that it's all being generated by a computer. It's
Yeah.
it's not being done by hand. So that's right. That's kind of the like the cornerstone of this argument against it, right?
Oh, of course. I
Yeah.
think anybody, like if say for example, I were to draw something and then be like, I post it, and then 2 seconds later somebody posts a similar thing and be like, hey, this is AI generated. I'd assume, or I think based off like some things that I've seen, people will obviously gravitate to the thing that's human made because at the end of the day, I really think that art isn't really about the art. It's more about the person that made the art. Because
Mhm.
a lot of people gravitate to a lot of people just because it's that person. They don't necessarily need to have the best art or anything like that. Having great art definitely does help.
Right,
um,
yeah.
but a lot of times, like people will hang around because of the people that they like. And if it's just an AI generated art, it's like that's not really yours. So I don't think it should be getting the same amount of credit as a human made stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, we were just talking about how uh, one of the biggest issues is that AI art is taking influence from existing artists and their work on the internet. Um, is there anything, any program, any application, any software, anything, any proactive measure that an artist can do aside from just straight up not posting their artwork on the internet to prevent their artwork from being aped from a an AI generated artwork application, web scraper program, etc.?
I mean, people have been doing it for the longest. Watermarking. That's probably the only thing that we can at this point.
Hmm.
Because regardless, even sometimes if you go through like AI, like web applications, I know Artbreeder tends to do this a couple times, where you'll generate an image and you'll see watermarks, and it'll just be like a jumbled mess because obviously it's like still trying to be a completely different thing.
Right, and
But
that's
you'll still
how.
kind of notice it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interject in the
No,
middle
go
of your
ahead.
sentence. I apologize. I because it just jogged my memory. That's how a lot of artists are coming to learn that they're falling victim to this. Right, like a friend will reach out to them, be like, "Hey, I saw this like on Facebook or on a website, and it had your watermark or your artist signature. Like, did you do this?" And they were like, "No." Like,
Yeah.
and they found out that way because like it would generate the artwork with that artist's watermark, or their signature, and it's straight up something that they did not do themselves. So
Right. And
yeah.
they could easily, pass it off saying that they made it because they were the one that pressed the button.
Right. So having like a watermark isn't truly like a 100% like
It's
fail
not
safe. It's
gonna deflect anything.
right.
It's still gonna happen.
Right,
Um,
but it will ensure that your name lands on that
yeah,
AI work, yeah.
it should definitely like, you know, interfere a bit,
Mhm.
but I don't think at the end of the day, like the computer's not gonna care that there's a watermark there, and it's not gonna be like, oh, this is somebody's art. I'm not gonna touch this one. It's gonna take it and it's gonna generate it
R
regardless.
right, yeah. Um, do you think, I know you said you have like a little bit of programming experience. I know
Mhm,
my profession is software development, so I could weigh in just a little bit, but I'm not like a digital artist. So,
mhm.
the amount of I can weigh in is fairly limited. Do you think we are far off or not so far off from a legit application, or like a Norton type software that prevents your art from being used from like web scrapers and all that, or do you think that's not really a possibility to have? Like, you think it's always going to be kind of like an issue?
I think there's always gonna be an issue
Hmm.
regardless when it comes to AI art, and trying to protect your own art. There are a lot of people that are, activating to try to get like laws put into place to prevent your art
Sure.
being like you have to like opt into it,
Hmm.
allowing things to be shared and whatnot.
Right.
So I think that's like the next course, and when it would happen, I have no idea. Hopefully soon, because I
Hmm.
know a lot of people are really fighting for it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's only time will tell because at the rate that it's expanding now, it because AI art's been around for quite a while, but recently, just like NFTs, it blew up.
Yeah,
And now that it's the big thing, everybody's like, jumping into it.
right. Yeah, it seems like these kinds of things. It's funny you mentioned NFTs. That's a big one of 2022. Like,
Hmm.
NFTs have been around like since like 2014. Like, I think even earlier than that. Like, they've been around for a long time, like 10
Yeah,
years or so. But it seems like these things reach like this tipping point where they like gain momentum, and then all of a
and
sudden,
then drop.
yeah, like overnight, everyone knows about it. Like something happens and then everyone knows about it.
Hmm.
And it's just, I find it interesting how these kinds of things work like that. Um, and I'm intrigued and curious about what that catalyst is that kind of pushes it over the edge to it being, in the common knowledge instead of just like a niche topic that only a select few talk about. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I
I know
mean,
at least. Oops,
go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
I know recently a lot of YouTubers, especially like the last week or so, a lot of YouTubers have been making a lot of content on it,
Mhm,
whether it's like in a negative or positive standpoint. But all of that stuff just generates more interest and it spreads the word. And
for
because of
sure.
stuff like that, that's definitely gonna blow it up even more.
Yeah, they're. I'm just like them. I'm trying to cash in on the topic of the day,
Hmm. Hey, might
and
as well get on
I'm
those trends.
I mean, I'm I'm just trying to. This is seriously like a learning moment. Like this is what I love to do with this podcast. Is if it's a topic that I don't know a ton about, I like to find someone like yourself that knows more about it and that can come on and talk about it. So yeah, this is a great opportunity. Um, let's see. I think that's pretty much all I had in the notes in terms of like the cons and the arguments against it. Um, is there anything that I've missed that you can
Oh,
think of? Anything that
I've got some notes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Hit me with it cuz I'm interested to hear what else you have to say in terms of like the con and negative side of it.
Yeah. So for cons, I kind of made like a little bulletin
Sure.
post
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
So essentially, stolen art. I
Mhm.
said that earlier. The web apps are easy, but the people that like want to get into like the like more code based generation, it's harder for like beginners and whatnot. So a lot of people will steer clear from the code based side.
Mhm.
AI art is not perfect. Like I said before, with like the anatomy and whatnot, there's a lot of things that like it just doesn't do good, and you still have to do a lot of work, like post process work afterwards, and like Photoshop and whatnot. So
Mhm.
another con, it's not like a full, you know, one click and you got a perfect, masterpiece.
Right.
Um, One of the bigger cons, and I'm not saying this directly towards like the AI art itself, but it's more for the artists. New artists are very dissuaded by AI art,
Mhm.
just because if you're a brand new artist, say like you're just coming out of high school or whatever, and you're thinking like I want to make a career out of art, but then you're seeing AI art being generated every second that looks
Mhm.
100 times better than like what most people can do. Granted, I use AI art sometimes just to get like ideas, and try to like block out certain things to
Right.
get a
Yeah.
general idea of stuff.
Yeah. I bookmarked that you told me, and we'll dive deeper into that when we get to the pros and the advantages. So
Yeah. Um, so it can be a pro, but just seeing the art like that, it dissuades a lot of new people,
I
and
can imagine
unfortunately,
it fucking would me
yeah,
like seeing that. It's just like how do you compete with a computer like that? Like, I mean, granted that computer is ripping off, actual artists.
yeah,
But it's also bringing the best of the best of the best artists to the forefront,
yeah,
and so you're comparing yourself to the best of the best, and so yeah, I can definitely see it being a negative that way.
yeah. Definitely scares the crap out of. I won't say it scares the crap out of me, but like when it comes to like me comparing my art to AI art, I'm just like, damn, I wish I was better.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the so I didn't actually know about this, but while I was doing research for the episode, because I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't really like missing some stuff, I actually found out that there's certain I'm not gonna name any people specifically, but there's
Sure.
people that take other people's art specifically and train AIs towards that. So like they did that for like Sam does art, Ross draws, like some of the YouTubers.
Hmm.
But one of the ones that like kind of hurt me the most personally was I don't know if you know him, Kim Jung Ji. He was
Sounds
like a
familiar.
he makes incredible art. Like he hand draws everything. Like he does like live. Well, he used to. He passed away unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Um, but he used to like do live streams and he would just draw and he draws like random stuff, but it's always beautiful.
Hmm.
And he never used reference. He drew everything out of his mind. He was just incredible artist. But when he
Wow.
passed away, unfortunately, somebody took all his art and trained a model on it, AI on it,
Wow.
and what they did, they started creating images based off his art, and it looked almost identical to some of his stuff. And obviously, new stuff popped out because of it, but it was all in his art style, and they were profiting off of it.
Mm.
So, I mean, he kind of like played it off as like, oh, it's a tribute, but the man passed away, and you're making money off of his art style. It's kind of
Yeah,
scummy.
that's not cool, like, at all. I
Yeah,
mean, if you were going to do that and then, like, donate money to his estate
yeah,
or like, do some sort of fundraising thing, that's a different story. Or getting the family's permission and like, paying, you know, royalties or whatever the art illustration equivalent of royalties is. That's another thing, but yeah, that's a tough one, especially if someone had passed away. That's
yeah.
like resurrecting Michael Jackson via the projection
Automated
screen,
AI
or
audio or something. Yeah,
yeah, having like Michael Jackson and Tupac like
yeah. The holograms.
up on like a hologram stage at like um
Coachella.
Coachella.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy shit, man.
No.
Okay,
And it
well,
was like immediately after he passed too, which is even worse, I think.
ugh. Yeah, when did he pass? Do you remember? Was
I
it
believe it was in
recently?
October.
Oh, wow,
It
that
wasn't that long ago. It was recent.
okay. Maybe that's another reason why the AI generated art argument has kind of been uh, has
Like
gotten a
blowing
big
up
bump
lately.
lately.
Yeah, that's
Um,
one of the big points against it all because it's like I don't know, it's just the concept that anybody could take anybody's art, put it through whatever algorithm that they have, and be able to create almost identical art and then just pass it off on your own.
mhm.
It's kind of messed up because you're just profiteering off of somebody else's artwork.
Yeah.
Um, so I actually I made a statement in my notes. It was like training your AI off someone else's art is. Can I curse on here? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh well, it's fucking disgusting, and you should be ashamed of yourself if you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll make that clear. We did say at the top that we're taking an objective look at this, this topic and having a conversation about it, but that doesn't mean it's going to exclude us from
Oh yeah, I could
saying
be a tiny
fuck
bit
that.
biased. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's like you mentioned, it takes jobs away from artists. Like a big thing I thought about is, like big companies, uh the they have the resources um to invest in certain things to make their company better, to grow their company. And if one of those things is having art to list on their website for whatever reason, like having a subscription in Shutterstock, as an example, like
mm,
with AI generated art, instead of having like a freelance artist on retainer, or having art artist contracted or salaried artists on your payroll, this seems like a potentially cheaper option to all that.
yep,
So now both the boomers and Gen Z and millennials can get in on the on the crazy angry, in your tall black socks on the front lawn, shaking your fist at the sky, get off my lawn.
damn, damn,
Um,
damn.
yeah, now we can get in on the yelling of, these robots are taking our jobs.
They're
Like,
gonna take our money.
yeah, because for the longest time, like, it was like the crazy boomers and old folk that were, complaining about automation and all that, just usurping the human roles in the workforce. And
Yeah,
we're just like, whatever. And now it's happening to us.
yeah.
And we're like,
It's
oh, okay.
unfortunately like one of those things where if it doesn't like involve you, you don't really, put your 2 cents
Yes.
into it. But now it's like the artists are getting involved, and we're like, no.
Hmm. Yeah. All of a sudden, we have a line to draw.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So yeah, yeah, that's all good. Do let's see. You have anything else in your list?
No, I think I pretty much covered it. I think the only other thing that I have is just a question: why should I be an artist if there's AI that could do the same thing?
Hmm.
And I just hope that anybody that is contemplating or being, they're kind of like on the edge, like should I even bother trying to be an artist because of AI? I say just don't even bother like overthinking it, because at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure anything that you make is going to be 100 times more magical because it has you in it. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to touch on that also, which is a good segue to the pros.
yeah.
So we've discussed the elephant in the room, all the people shaking their fists at the sky in rage, um, and discussing all the negativity floating around regarding this topic. Now we can focus on some of the pros and
Yeah, some of the good stuff.
the positive aspects of AI generated art. And up until having the discussion with you on Discord, when you offered to come on and discuss, I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't know that there were pros or uh, advantages to using it that were ethical. And the one you mentioned while we were talking, and then the one you mentioned just a few minutes ago, was something to the effect of it's a good jumping off point where
Yeah.
you have it come up with something very rudimentary or remedial, and then you use that as a jumping off point to expand on. So you want to discuss that and some of the other advantages or pros?
Yeah, of course. You could definitely, like I said before, it's kind of like a stepping stone.
Hmm.
If you just don't have an idea, like you have a concept in your head. So say for example, perfect segue would be, or perfect example, maybe we could cut
Hmm.
that. Perfect example would be like the Cthulhu drawing that you asked me to do.
Sure.
I had so much trouble, like just trying to figure out. Like I had the idea, like my like image of like what Cthulhu would be. Like I kind of got that, and I was
Mhm.
able to send that to you pretty quickly. But then once I had like to put it into a scene, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I had no idea. Because everything I did, like, it just didn't feel good, or it would look good when it was just like ink. But
Mhm.
when I started coloring it, it just looked horrible. So it was a lot of me going back and forth. But then when you had asked me about getting on, well, when I had suggested to be on the the podcast for
Sure.
the AI art, I was like,
Yeah.
hey, might as well use AI to try to make it for one of the pros. So I ended up using it to generate kind of like scenery ideas,
Mhm.
not so much of like Cthulhu himself because I already had that idea.
Sure.
But now I know for like when I'm ready to like fully flesh it out, I kind of have an idea of like what I could throw him into, and I think that it'll probably be easier for me to get a final draft with that rather than me trying to figure it out in my head and just being stuck in a loop of running around with my head cut off, you know?
Yeah. So for listeners, I asked Gabe, I think maybe a month or two ago, like, well, we were talking, and
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned you were like stuck in a rut, or just you didn't
Yeah, it's an
have.
art rut.
Yeah, and I was like, well, what if I put you to work? And you're like, that might help. And so I gave you a project to work on, and and at first like you had your sketches and everything, and I mean, I've been super impressed with everything that you sent my way so far.
Oh, thank you.
And then you hit a snag of sorts where you touched on that just a few seconds ago, some of the issues that you ran into, like the landscaping and whatnot. um so yeah, that's this was just a design that I wanted to throw on a Tumblr, because for listeners that are new or don't know, like I do Tumblr making, like tumblers and cup, and
You make Tumblr art. Those things are beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
You're
Um,
welcome.
yeah, I love doing the sublimation. It's a fun, like, it's very quick. Like, you can bang it out in like a half hour. Like, the longest part is printing out the page and waiting for the ink to dry. That's like
Hmm.
the longest part of it. But once it's dry, like, you can bang it out in, like, just a couple minutes. Um, but yeah, that's that's what I wanted. So for listeners that were like, include us in the fucking conversation,
Yeah,
please.
what the heck are you guys talking about?
So yeah, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, you were using that for the Cthulhu landscape and all that. So
Yeah. So, but then that also like kind of brings up the question: is that AI assisted art, or is that just straight up AI generated art?
mhm,
So I guess I would consider it assisted because I'm still doing the heavy lifting, you know.
sure.
Um, but I don't think most people have that same point of view.
I'm sure that point of view is also going to vary from artist to artist. That
Yeah,
you're going to have your hardcore um traditionalists, I guess, for lack of better words, that say, like, unless you did all of that like by hand, and it came out of your brain, then it doesn't count.
yeah,
But it's you're you're using a either a Wacom tablet or an iPad or a computer, Photoshop, Procreate. You have all these tools at your disposal to make your job as a artist or illustrator like so much easier and more streamlined. And it's kind of ridiculous to, like, you know, to deny help from computers when so
it's
many
true.
friggin'
We
artists.
rely on them so much.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, sorry, I just want to I had that come up in my brain and needed to get that out.
No, yeah, it's a good point. Honestly, I didn't even think about it that way because I use my iPad pretty much every day.
Hmm.
Especially like with Procreate. I love that app to death, but if it
Yeah.
wasn't there, what would I draw on? You know?
Yeah, I've met and know so many people, so many artists, especially starting to do conventions, here in Nashville, and around other places. We so many super talented digital illustrators use Procreate, and like, I get, Facebook now is basically just Sky Mall, and an occasional update from your friend. uh,
Right.
you're like, product, 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 product. It's
Oh,
like,
a meme.
oh, Jenny. Yeah, you'll get a meme, and then you're like, oh, Jenny is at Jenny's ice cream. That's kind of funny. Ad. um
Right.
but yeah, I get a lot of, even though I'm not an artist, like, I still get a lot of Procreate ads, because I will be holding my phone and say Procreate next to it, and then next thing
Oh,
I
of
know,
course.
because it's always listening.
Oh, yeah. Listening, I think it goes beyond that because I swear to God, I wasn't even home near my phone or anything like that. And I saw something as I was like out because I sometimes just go for a walk. I leave my phone at home to like decompress and whatnot.
Good idea.
And
Very
yeah,
admirable.
well, I try to because I noticed that being on my phone, social media, I barely post on social media anymore. I
Sure.
just noticed that I was taking up so much like more of my time, and I
Hmm.
just need to break that habit. And sometimes I fall back into it, freaking YouTube and your damn shorts and TikTok. Don't even get me started with TikTok.
Yeah,
But
I removed it from my phone. I was like, I can't go
it's
down this rabbit hole.
yeah, no, it's a trap. It
Yeah.
really is.
Hmm.
But so I was out of my house. I was taking a walk, and I saw something, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." And I shit you not, the second that I got home, I opened up like my internet, my Google Chrome.
Hmm.
I was about to say Internet Explorer. Who uses that? Um,
I don't think it's a
ah,
thing anymore.
it's I think it's like Microsoft Edge. It's like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
try to
that's
force you to use it, but
that's
it's Chrome
it's like,
all
why
the.
don't you want to use Microsoft Edge? It's because it
That's like
sucks.
40
That's
years
why.
old.
Yeah, exactly.
But the first advertisement I saw was almost identical to the thing that I saw.
Holy shit! And you
Yeah,
didn't
it was
even
scary.
you,
I didn't
you
even have
didn't
my phone on me.
You didn't have a smartwatch or anything? No
Nothing.
device? Nothing?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it was scary.
That yeah, that's whew, okay. That is pretty spooky.
Oh, maybe it was just like sometimes
Cool.
they do local stuff is like advertised, so maybe.
Mm,
But either way, it was very weird because it wasn't something that I typically like see.
all right. Yeah, that's very very odd. Hopefully it was just a coincidence.
Oh, here's hoping.
Right, yeah. Um so let's see. We talked a little bit so far about the pros.
I
What
still got some more if you want.
Yes, please. I couldn't remember if we how many we hit because we already went on like so many damn tangents. So yeah.
Yeah.
Any other pros and advantages to AI art and utilizing it? Please, uh,
Yeah.
feel free to hit us with your best shot.
So another thing is quick iteration. So if you want to do like concept work, um I mean, granted, it kind of goes back into the whole idea of like, oh, it's just taking other people's art. But if you were to, say, for example, upload something that you draw, and then it could create variations based off of that. So if you wanted to like take a, I don't know, like a Middle Eastern spin on something that's
Hmm.
more Western, and you upload a picture of that, and then you get your, your iterations of that, you could use that for concept between, uh, just to get like a better idea or something that you could try that you typically wouldn't like think personally. Uh,
Okay.
so
I
like concept art and whatnot.
what about doing that with just your artwork? Like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like that must be a thing, right? Like
I'd assume so because you could train your AIs like with whatever. Going back to the example that I said before, like where they were taking other people's specific art, like you
mhm.
definitely can just like kind of like section out what you want specifically. So if I upload all of my art and say, "Hey, make something in a similar art style," I'd hope that it makes something in a similar art style.
Yeah.
But then that's actually a really good point because would that be a bad thing? Not really. I don't think.
I think it'd be kind of fun. Like you could almost have like a competition with your computer where
Right?
like you're like, "Okay, I'm really good at drawing like concept art for Animal Crossing." Um
Mm,
so let's ask my computer to like take Animal Crossing and instead of like on islands, do it in like the middle of the desert. And you ask your computer to do that or a program, the AI, whatever, and then you do it yourself and see like which one is better.
right. Yeah, it's like almost challenging yourself with, I
with
guess,
your
like your with
it-
yourself.
yeah, it's really weird. Like yeah, this is very like brave new world
Yeah.
like concepts that we're talking about. Like it's almost like a computerized version of yourself that you're like
Yeah. Like I got to
you're
be better
like
than myself.
right, yeah. Can I be uh, can I artistically be better than the ones and zeros version of me?
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Actually, I kind of want to try that now.
Go for it. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has considered that idea. So,
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's probably like YouTube videos and whatnot on it.
hmm yeah. All right. What else?
It's great for people that have no artistic talent to bring their ideas to life.
Okay.
Because there's plenty of people that just have great ideas but can't do anything about it.
Right.
Um, but I guess that could also be a con because then it takes away the potential of somebody getting commissioned off of that. Um, I
Right.
guess just a cheaper alternative.
Yeah. I think as long, I mean, I think this kind of is the along the same route as the first example of using it as a jumping off point, like
Hmm.
as long as you're not like just straight up taking the finished product
Yeah, and then being
after.
like, "Hey, this is mine."
Yeah,
Yeah,
like as long as you're not taking that and you're like, as long as you do something additional, whether you're adding to it or you're like, I don't know what the process would be for different iterations or variations of it, but tracing over it, or making it polygon shaped instead of like everything's like very fantastical or dramatic. So yeah.
Yeah, just getting that jumping off point.
For sure.
Um, that would kind of Yeah, I think we went over all my points
Okay,
for the
right on.
pros. It's pretty much the same stuff. It's if you don't have artistic talent or just a little, you could make stuff quickly and then either pass it on or try to work on it yourself. Um, just essentially a make art button.
Right, for sure. I know one of my questions was we've kind of already touched on this a little bit. Some of the ways that artists can utilize an AI generated art that wouldn't be as controversial or controversial, period. Um, and some of the ways that you have utilized it. Like I said, I know we have already touched on this and answered or given some answers. Is there anything else that you can think of, to add to this question, or
Um,
kinda touched on everything?
I mean, I think mainly like the best way to use it without going into the territory of like just stealing art
Mhm.
and whatnot, is to try to build off of whatever you create.
Yeah.
It- yeah, I think that's really it.
For sure. So if an artist wanted to like dip their toe into this, medium or whatever we want to call AI generated art and use
Yeah.
it respectfully, so that it's not inherently ripping off other artists out there, what are some of the applications or programs that they can use to get started? Like, what's something that you like to use or have used?
Yeah. So I've used a couple, not as often as I think a lot of other people, because I just use it every so often when I'm like kind of stuck on art ideas.
Hmm.
But there's Dali 2, which is a web program that you just have to request access for. You get access pretty quickly. I
Is
think they
that
give you
is that Dolly as in Salvador Dali?
maybe.
Is it
I don't know what they
it
named it after, but
is
it's
it DA?
DALL dash E. So they
Oh,
changed it.
okay. It might be a different spelling of uh Dolly. It's just DALI. Um, but
Yeah, they maybe. I don't know if they referenced that or not, but
yeah,
maybe.
I don't know if AI generated art could even come up with what Salvador Dali came up with. Like, he drew like the melting clocks and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Uh,
Oh, you could definitely get some wacky stuff like that. Like if you could think it, it'll make it.
yeah, I bet. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I'm gonna say this for just in general because this is primarily like the case with all of them. You typically get like credits to start off with. They're like
Okay.
15 to 25 credits depending on the program. But then after that, most of them are either you pay for credits to build more images or you like pay a subscription. So it'd be
Mhm.
like you pay $10 a month or whatever, and you get like a certain amount or unlimited for whatever amount. And it just depends on who you go with. But Dolly's pretty good. They give you 15 a month. Um, I mean, unless if you're just trying to dip your toes into it, I think 15 is pretty good. Just to like test it out, put in a couple prompts, see if you like it. If not, throw it in the bin. It's not
Sure.
gonna not really hurt anybody. Or it's not gonna hurt you.
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
there's also Midjourney. If you have Discord, you could just add a bot to your server or use their primary server. Um, and then you could generate the images directly through Discord, which is kind of cool. I was testing that out actually before we started this. Had
Nice.
sent you the picture of that druid, the female druid in the forest, and
Sure.
she was holding
Yeah.
like the little glowy orbs, and
I
it
actually
came out like way better than I thought I was going to, and it kind of freaked
Yeah,
me out.
that was beautiful. Yeah, I actually just did a druid Tumblr not too long ago. 'Cause I'm actually working on a bunch of D&D Tumblrs right now,
Oh
going
yeah,
through all the characters or classes or whatever they're called. My wife
the
and I just
archetypes.
started a campaign back in the fall, and we're loving it so far. And
Nice.
but it's a work in progress in terms of learning. Like there's just so much to learn and know about the game, and so yeah, it's a lot, but we're having a lot of fun.
I can imagine. I've always wanted to do Dungeons and Dragons, but I've just never found a group.
Yeah, it's I kind of lucked into it. Like a lot of my friends on Facebook are are DMs or players or both, and our DM that my friend that ended up DMing for our game, he was like, "I'm pretty sure I have time in my schedule. I already have a couple games going on." I was like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, I have this one and this one. I'm a DM for this one, but a player in this one, and then this one's online." And I'm like, "Jesus, like, are you sure you have time to do this?" He's like,
It's a
"Yeah."
lifestyle.
Yeah, like he fucking loves it. Like I think he said he only DMs. So yeah, he loves it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know, maybe we can get a an online game going one of these days. That'd be
I'd be
fun.
down.
Yeah,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure. But anyways.
That's actually another thing that would be kind of cool to play around with AI art is with your characters because a lot of people like get illustrations and whatnot. You could
Mhm.
literally just type in your exact description and you'll get something that's fairly similar.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Um speaking of which, this a shameless plug. If you so like I said, we are doing a D&D campaign right now, and we are recording it. The first session and a half is available to listen to on the podcast. However, the rest of it is Patreon exclusive. So if you enjoy D&D and or enjoy listening to D&D campaigns, sign up for our Patreon. It's only like $2 to start out. So yeah, if you're interested in
Do it.
listening to us for like 3+ hours, like playing D&D. It's a fun time. Like the first like session or two was a little rocky because half of us were learning how to play, and then one of our other players had played a long time ago, but it's kind of like quickly relearning. So it's like I said, it's been interesting. But yeah, shameless plug. Anyways, back to your original programming.
That's where we leave off. Oh,
Yeah, we were
Mid-Journey, right?
talking, yeah, Midjourney and yeah, any other programs or applications that you can think of.
Yep. So there's actually a couple for your phone as well. I don't know if Face App is still a thing. I didn't see that when I was doing research, but I remember a while ago, like a long time ago, Face App was pretty big because it was like,
Mhm.
make yourself old, make yourself a baby, and everybody was on that. And then they were like, the Russians are stealing our faces.
Yeah, isn't that why like it was super popular and then not popular?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Like
was like everybody was super excited, like I could be old, and then there was like, we're getting our faces stolen.
yeah, like that was kind of like it seemed like the beginning of that whole the realization or waking up to the idea of like these double-sided applications out there where they promote one feature, and but it's really like in the back end it's doing some creepy shit.
Yeah, super shady.
Yeah, steal in your face, gonna
Yeah.
put it on Nicolas Cage, do another Face Off movie.
Oh no. Damn, I
Oh
forgot about
shit.
that movie. Face
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, sorry I had to bring it back
Oh
into
yeah, you brought it back. I mean, it's not the best movie,
no,
but
it's
it is
not.
a movie.
It is in fact a movie. I mean, it's got John Travolta, it's got Nicolas Cage. You know, it can't be that bad, right? It could.
It could be.
Anyways, sorry.
No, no. So there's a couple apps. One called Wonder AI, Dream by Wumbo,
Okay.
Lenza. So all of these are like free apps for a couple of days, and then subscription, of course.
Yeah, I think Lenza was the one that I downloaded and saw that like even to get started you had to input card information. I was like, never mind. I don't
Yeah.
care that much.
But I mean, those are like I think the bigger ones that I've seen. I think Lenza is like the biggest one because most people on social media were posting those like
Hmm.
profile pictures and stuff from there.
Right.
But I mean, for the most part, they do essentially the same thing. You either post a picture of yourself or they have like the text prompts, and it does the same thing as the web applications, but just not as I think in depth, because I don't think they necessarily put in the same amount of, I guess, funding or whatnot that
Sure.
the web applications do. And
Hmm.
plus, because the web applications run off of like computers, and some of them, like the coded ones specifically, run off your computer. So
Hmm.
like if you have good hardware, then you could do more with the computer-based ones. But you know, you still got a option for mobile devices and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Um, Anything else? Any others that you
Um,
found?
those are the only ones I wrote down.
Cool. I mean, that's a great place to start. Yeah, so definitely check those out. And if you're interested in looking at AI generated arts in a more in depth capacity, listeners. Um, but yeah, I think the moral of the story here, and Gabe, you can chime in if you like.
Mhm.
It just seems like, you know, proceed with caution and be responsible and respectful when using this, because it. I think in this day and age, it's easy to get detached from everything, like from
Yeah,
reality, from just from human interaction, like from people going to like working from home, and just having less and less human interaction, so you become like more and more detached from like people.
my
So
chair just almost like broke me. Sorry.
all good. um so yeah, I think the best thing, the biggest thing is to just like, if you're interested in doing this, like or using it as a helper of some sort, like just proceed with caution and use it responsibly.
Yeah, don't be a
Because
dick.
yeah, because Gabe, like you said, it's not like some repository of images that it's pulling from, where the computer built those two like completely from scratch, or
Yeah.
it's not like a bunch of artists like you know opened up a repository and willingly threw all their stuff in there, like what's
There
going
was
on right.
never an option.
Yeah, like what's happening right now is very very Wild West type shit.
Yeah.
And I think sooner or later, the other shoe is going to drop. What do you think? You think that there's like a hammer is going to come down at some point in time, that either like a
I think
law or
I
some.
think the closest thing that we're probably going to get is it'd probably be a law,
Mhm.
something of some sort where you can, I don't know how they would even implement it, truthfully.
Yeah,
Um, maybe like a digital watermark that's like stuffed into the file itself and not like visibly seen, and then I
sure.
don't know, but probably a law will come around.
Yeah, it seemed like maybe we can utilize like NFT technology, because I mean that's the whole point of NFTs, right? Is like, I mean, it's a piece of digital art that, like, you can copy and paste, but the whole idea is that you have like the original file with all the metadata that
Yeah.
says this was the original. So yeah, it seems like if we can, if we have some sort of system in place where you can prove that you were the original creator, um and like prove without a reasonable doubt that you know this AI generated piece of art looks super similar to your style, then yeah, it seems like some amendments to some copyright laws are coming down the pike.
Yeah.
So.
It's just the concept of it. Like I, even as like an artist, on my point of view, I don't know how they would be able to regulate it.
Mm,
Because like most things, like even I say for example, like I'm pretty big into 3D printing, but one side of it that I will never get into is like, you know, firearm making and stuff like that. And they
mm,
put in laws to like prevent that kind of stuff, but
right.
it's not gonna do anything. People are still gonna do it. If anything, that gives people more like incentive personally to try to do more stuff like that. And I don't know
Right.
if that's going to be the same thing with AI art. Like, I don't know if it's going to get even crazier than before, or like what's
Right.
going to happen.
Um, I know that that's not what we're here to talk about, but now that we are talking about it, is there any are there any complications with like getting like 3D files for like prop guns for like cosplay and stuff?
No, no, stuff like that. It's I think the only things with those is like if you were to go to con, or like if you're going outside, the
Right.
orange tip, like a
Yeah,
BB gun.
you have to check it.
Yeah. Um, just as long as it's not like a operating gun, it's okay.
Right. Yeah, since you mentioned that, like I didn't realize that, you know, you could 3D print parts to make like, you know, an actual firearm.
Yeah.
I knew that you could, you know, 3D print parts to make a, you know, like a cosplay piece, you know, like a weapon or a firearm or sword for, you know, to complete your cosplay ensemble. But
Hmm.
I didn't know about the you know legit firearm thing, so I was curious
Yeah.
like if that if like now if you sell like those digital 3D print files, like if you have to put some sort of disclaimer or jump through additional hoops in order to sell them.
I
I was
think
just curious.
there might be something along that. I know there's like really big groups that like are dedicated to 3D printing and firearms.
Hmm.
So they might they might have some sort of like system in check, but
Hmm.
that I'm not too sure.
Interesting.
I do know that they call them, I think, ghost guns, because
Okay.
they can't be detected because they're plastic, and they
Yeah,
actually have them in Call of Duty. Like you can see some of the guns, they look printed. Um,
that's funny.
so it's like they're like, cause they remade Modern Warfare 2, and one of the big missions in the first one was no Russian, where like you're going through an airport. Fucked up mission. Cause like you're just like gunning down civilians. It's really messed up. But
Yeah,
they
that's
kind of like teased it, and the guns that they were showing, they were 3D printed. So,
interesting. That's yeah, that's something else.
yeah, super wild,
Yeah,
super wild.
wild shit. Okay, well, I think we've gone over you know the highlights and gone in depth you know to a pretty good extent. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
covered bases.
for sure. At least as much as we can cover at this juncture. Maybe if we see some further developments down the road, we can readdress this. But as for right now, it seems like this is the best that we can present with the facts that we have. So
Yeah, it's definitely like it's coming up to a point where something's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time.
mhm.
Um, like if you look at like the petitions, like the sign my petition thing, I don't know what that website's called anymore. Change.org, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, like people are doing petitions on there, and so who knows? Maybe something will happen, but time will tell.
right. Yeah. Um, so we for those of you that are new to the podcast or haven't listened in a while, we do a segment towards the end of each episode called "Shit That Doesn't Suck."
Shit that doesn't suck.
Where I and either Lindsay, if she's on, my wife and co host, or my guest, which is this case, we make a recommendation for something that we have recently watched, read, looked at, or experienced. And so, with that, Gabe, what is your shit that doesn't suck for this week, this episode?
God of War Ragnarok.
Oh,
That game is phenomenal.
yeah,
Like
dude, I've heard nothing but good things about it. I haven't played any of the God of War games, unfortunately, but I've heard this one is fucking legit.
it's super good. Like it goes into like the whole, trying to be better. As a parent, especially with Kratos,
Mm-hmm.
it's him, because the previous game was him becoming more human through his son. And this
Okay.
one, it's more like everything that he learned from the last one, he's kind of like putting it into action. So like his
Okay.
decisions are always being like checked by, kind of like what he learned and then like through his son. So
Mm,
overall, a great experience. Yeah.
gotcha. That's really cool. So if I, like I said, I haven't played any of them. If I was to be interested in getting into them, would you advise starting with the first one, or
Um,
are they kind of like piecemeal where you can play one and not play another? Like, obviously you could, but I
yeah.
wasn't exactly sure like if you would miss like major plot developments if you just were to jump in at the newest one.
So if you were to get like the God of War, I think it was 2017, they like rebooted the series with the
Right.
Norse mythology. So if you started with that one, I think you'd be okay.
Okay.
Because they do reference the older games, but it's kind of subtle. So like you don't
Sure.
really need to know them. Like if you're a diehard, like you'll pick it out. Like, oh, he just mentioned Zeus, but didn't actually say it.
Right.
Um, and also like gameplay wise, they're so different that
Hmm.
like if you were to play them in order, you'd probably be like, what the fuck happened? Like why did they change from like hack and slash, like looking pretty much from like above, to over the shoulder and like a very personal experience compared to the other ones where it's just like stab, 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 everybody dies. With like a little bit of, I won't say a little bit because there was a lot of meaning behind it and a lot of like this is what happens when like you kind of lose control and you're just blinded by vengeance and whatnot. And
Hmm.
then you get to the newer ones where it's just like, all right, now this guy needs to kind of become human again.
Right.
Um, so they're totally different experiences. Like angry Kratos and dad Kratos, they're kind of like two different people. Um,
Yeah, that
so
makes
it
sense.
really depends on like what style you like. I would recommend from the very beginning just because like there's so many awesome moments. Like you're fighting hydras and you're fighting the gods
Wow.
from like Greek mythology and whatnot. And
Hmm.
so it's pretty badass. Some of it doesn't make sense, but they had to they had to go free
Take some
reign because they
liberties.
made essentially a new story and Kratos is a original character. So they had their liberties that well, what's the word? They had like they had space to make changes.
Sure.
But they did them like, they were tasteful,
I
and
got you.
I
That's
think
cool.
the newer ones they do the same thing, but it's so much more grounded.
Hmm.
They did a really good job. Like
That's
both the
awesome.
games, like for the years, they were both my game of the years for sure. Although it
Okay.
didn't win game of the year like officially, it's my
Right.
game of the year in my heart.
that's that's what really matters the most. What's
Oh, of course.
the game that you name game of the year.
Yeah,
Man, I'm excited. I'm glad that PS5s are becoming a little bit more easier to find nowadays. Now that
yeah.
now I might be able to finally get one. Uh so we'll see. I have a few games that I've set aside where I'm like they're available for PlayStation 4.
Hmm.
But I've just heard so many people like the new Miles game. Well, it's not
Yeah,
new anymore. Like I think it's a year or so old, but um like so many people have said like, oh, that one and like a few others that are available for PS4, like just they're like wait until the PS5 because
yeah.
the haptic feedback on the controller,
Oh
it's
yeah, that
just
controller's nice.
yeah. I'm assuming you're
My baby.
playing. So you're playing on PS5.
Yeah, so I have my PS5 over there,
Okay.
but I use my PS5 controller for my PC too,
Okay. Do you have the disc version or the digital version?
digital.
Okay.
I tend to download my games anyways,
I
so
gotcha.
it just kind of made sense, save the money.
Yeah. I'm gonna be expensive and get the disc version, but that's only because I have also been holding out on getting a 4K player.
Mm,
Because I'm still one of like seven people on planet Earth that buys DVDs. Um, you should people out there, if you're not listening, you need to start buying DVDs again. And I'm not like just trying to rally people together for the ridiculous concept of buying physical media. Like look at I'm trying not to go off on a tangent here. But look at what HBO did a couple weeks ago. Like they not only canceled Westworld and a couple other shows, they are removing them completely from the platform.
yeah.
Um luckily Westworld gets a physical release as well. But imagine if it didn't. That would just be gone. So and you know that's not just for like stuff that's on streaming platforms. Like digital copies that or just like movies that you get digitally or buy digitally instead of like going out to the store and buying the DVD. Like you may think you own it, but you don't. Like they
No.
could like a licensing agreement could end or something could happen and all of a sudden your shit could be gone.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I know. Oops, sorry.
no, I was just
Um,
gonna say it's very important to still buy physical media when you can. So
mhm. I have the digital PS5, but like my PS4 was physical. So like all like the important movies that
mhm.
like I liked, like Into the Spider-Verse, it was just the MCU movies, some of the
Right.
DC movies. I'm not gonna say all of them, but I had physical media, but now that I have the PS5, I can't even watch them. So now they're just sitting there. Well, I'll keep them for sentimental value, but
Right.
now since everything's I won't say everything, but there's a big push to like get most things digital now.
Mhm.
Um, and it kind of sucks because just like you said, like with the TV shows and stuff like that, it happens to like games and stuff like that too. So like on the PlayStation Store, they take games down every so often, and it could be for small things like licensing agreements for music in the
Yeah.
games or just companies randomly pulling products.
Mhm.
It sucks because even if you own them, you can't download them.
Right. Yeah, for
So
sure. Um, I think the best of both worlds are splitting the difference is getting the physical copy of a Blu-ray or a 4K disc. I've been getting the 4K disc even though I don't have a 4K player yet, because most 4K DVDs nowadays comes with the 4K version, the Blu-ray version, which is what I use, and then the digital download.
yeah,
So you have three different options. It's kind of like it's literally the best of all worlds.
yeah,
Um, and you get all of that for maybe a couple bucks more than what you would spend if you just bought it digitally outright. So
yeah, that's true.
yeah. Anyways, soapbox moment over. Now to my shit that doesn't suck.
Yeah.
I was going over a list of the top horror movies from 2022 because I realized or noticed that this past year has been an absolute banger for horror movies. Gabe, I'm
Mm.
not sure how much of a fan or not so much of a fan you are of horror flicks, but
I dabble.
yeah, I was more of a passive fan up until the last couple years when I just unearthed like this hidden like treasure trove within myself of like, oh, I really fucking love this genre of movies. Just because it has like so much to offer. And like I said, I found a list of the best, like the top 25, horror movies of this past year, and the new Hellraiser was on it. The one that's on Hulu. So I watched that last night, and it was actually pretty good. It's not anything great, didn't blow my socks off, but I think that if you are a fan of the original films, you'll probably enjoy it. Um, I'm not a hardcore fan of the franchise, like I said, but
Mhm.
I really liked it, and it's a fun addition. It does something a little bit different, um, but it also pays homage, to all the original concepts, of like finding the box and um, it being the secret to unlocking dark deep desires of pain and pleasure. And tight leather and sexual seduction and all that. So
Hell yeah.
it's it's a trip, man. So yeah, get some bud and get a cozy blanket and strap in for a very interesting ride. It's good. I liked it. I give it like 4 stars, 4 out of 5. So
Okay.
it's a good one. So But anyways, Gabe, do you have any other last words? Actually, go ahead and plug anything that you'd like to, any social media handles, anything that you'd like our
Yeah.
listeners to be aware of.
So, I like I said in the beginning, I don't typically use social media as much as I used to.
Mm,
But I'll throw in my handles, just for the fun of it.
for sure.
So my Instagram for my cosplay stuff is Frostbite Cosplays. Um, and then YouTube, I'm gonna start YouTubing with one of my friends. So my YouTube handle is Beyond with two D's. And I guess I could write that down and we could like put it
Yeah,
in the description or something.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. Oh wait, actually, we might have to cut that because I think my YouTube is completely wrong. Hold
Oh
up.
yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, just you can message me whatever your stuff is so I
I was right.
spell it
It's okay.
correctly. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be primarily YouTube. I don't have any content up, but I will soon.
Gotcha.
And then Instagram, I have a bunch of old stuff that I worked on. I will be rebranding soon
Okay.
to match the YouTube, just to kind of simplify everything, get everything in the same banner. But it will probably be like Beyond Cosplay or something like that.
Gotcha. That's cool. Awesome. Well, Gabe, thank you so much for coming on and helping to break down this topic. Like I said, it's very hot button topic here as of late.
Mhm.
And I definitely could not tackle it on my own just with what I know. Sure, I could have done research, but it is just so much better and more entertaining to have a guest on that knows about the topic and can speak to it. And then I can learn in real time. And this has been great. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
I
man. Happy
really
to help.
appreciate it. Awesome. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We are on all podcast apps, including Spotify and YouTube. Subscribe to our Patreon if you are a fan of D&D. You can listen to our D&D sessions. You also get to be a part of our private group chat where we discuss upcoming topics and episodes, and you get random free stuff and get entered into giveaways and stuff like that. So it's a good time. Your couple bucks a month goes a long distance. So and leave us a rating and review if you haven't already. I think Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Amazon, there's only a couple out there where you can leave a review. But yeah, that's going to be it. Be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake. Bye-bye.
Bye.